Denver Mayor Michael Hancock kicked off a re-election campaign this week, but canceled a speaking engagement at an LGBTQ conference after protests at the event regarding Jessica Hernandez. Meanwhile, our partners at CBS 4 reported that District Attorney Mitch Morrissey sent a scathing letter to Denver Manager of Safety Stephanie O'Malley in January regarding a report about a fired sheriff deputy. Patty, the city of Denver right now, at least in the government, it's been like as the world turns. So you take your pick of the many different issues that have come out this week. What do you think?
Well, it's as the world turns in a city with only one daily newspaper and smaller staffs at the TV stations too, so that you're not getting the kind of coverage you normally would. If Michael Hancock had a serious contender, which he doesn't right now, you would be seeing some really tough stories coming maybe from the contenders themselves, because he's vulnerable on a number of fronts. And the problem is he is so surrounded by people who seem to want to keep him safe. Of course he's going to be reelected. He's got $600,000. He seems to be a really nice guy. He hasn't made, he's got problems, but he hasn't made huge missteps. But to not speak in front of this national conference, and it was a big, prestigious national conference on gay, lesbian, transgender issues, to not be willing to stand up there because of protesters on the Jessica Hernandez case was wrong. That's what our mayor should be able to do. He had a kickoff for his campaign on Tuesday. It was all sweetness and light. But he's not bringing up the hard issues. He's not talking about the sheriff's department. He's not talking about the police shooting at moving vehicles. He's not talking about the money that it's going to cost to do the stock show plan. He's got a lot of pretty plans for the future of the city, but we need to get to the nitty-gritty.
David, it seems that sadly, for one reason or other, we're going to see protests continue. The shooting of Jessica Hernandez, before that we saw the protests. This isn't going to go away before the election, and frankly, it may even magnify even beyond this conference. You add that to all the different things that have been going on before those protests with the sheriff's department, before that the police department. It looks like there's a lot of stuff to talk about and going on, but not a lot of conversation. What do you think?
Well, I think one of the things that would, as Patty said, add more to the conversation would be a strong, credible candidate running against Mayor Hancock. And even if that candidate didn't win the election, it would raise the level of public dialogue. So I have an idea for somebody who I think should run. And this is somebody where what we need in the mayor's office most of all is administrative competence, because Mayor Hancock may be a nice guy, but he's really not good at running this large organization. And this is somebody who's got a proven record of administrative success, fits Denver politically, and is well liked by everybody, and that is Mary Celeste. She is the retired former presiding judge of the Denver District Court. So she's administered a large system, knows how to do things like that, and is well respected nationally, locally, statewide. Everybody likes her, and I think the public ought to draft Mary Celeste and give us a real race.
Who knew the Draft Mary Celeste movement would start right here on Channel 12? That's great. Eric, we've been talking about for a few weeks that the municipal elections in Denver have not even on the radar. It's almost been uncomfortable silence about what's been going on. Fortunately, it's starting to get a little bit, but what we're seeing is it feels more like a soap opera than anything else. What's your take?
I'll let David's go. It's a softball, but I'll let that softball go. But somehow I don't think Miss Celeste will be sitting in the mayor's office a half year from now. I think Patty's essentially right here. Competition is good, and competition, it's good in any sector. It's the missing ingredient here. Of course, Michael Hancock can decide to skip this convention because there's no consequence to skipping it. He's the prohibitive favorite. I mean, he's the mayor-elect, not only the incumbent mayor, but he's the mayor re-elect as we speak because there is no opposition. You can't beat somebody with nobody. Now, even if there was somebody in the race, it would be a very heavy lift, a very unlikely kind of scenario. But at least some of these issues would be discussed. The lack of competition breeds complacency, and I think that decision not to show up at that convention or a zillion other decisions or potential decisions down the road like that have their roots in complacency. I also think it's potentially dangerous in terms of what it means for a next term. But it is the fact we have the whole attention in the city, to the extent that anyone's engaged in politics, is going to be on the auditor's race and a handful of council races. But we have no mayor's race. The Denver Post, Jeremy Meyer with the Post, did a recent column saying we really needed a mayor's race in this town. Called me as part of that column and was trying to go back to previous incumbents who were thought vulnerable at the time. Federico Pena in 1987, Wellington Webb in 1995. The difference, and again, Patty hit this, is that was in a robust media environment. There were 2 newspapers in this town, 2 daily papers, and each of those papers had a minimum of 2 people assigned to City Hall. They were digging they were digging up under every rug in City Hall looking for stuff, and successfully looking for stuff, particularly by 1995. You don't have that environment now. The landscape is completely different.
And to be fair, Mayor Hancock was planning to speak at the conference. It's just that after that protest, the organizers announced that he wasn't going to be speaking. Natasha, not only do we see the kind of the weird thing happening at the conference and the campaigns kicking off, but then you have this whole thing between Morrissey and O'Malley. And while neither of them are within the election, that's still saying something about the city of Denver and nothing positive, at least from what I can see. What do you make of it?
Well, I think what's going to happen is that brush-ups like that are going to filter into the city council races. And that's where most of this discourse and conversation and discussion is going to happen. Since Hancock isn't going to be a big part of that conversation, now that could actually be quite difficult for him as he moves forward. But the city council races, I was already hearing long into last year that the people were putting their money towards the city council races. The reasons why: there are many people that are term limited, there are redistricting issues that have come up, and there's all these legacy issues that this council is going to have to deal with, including the police, dealing with things like the Morrissey-O'Malley issue, dealing with the sheriff's department. These are things they're going to inherit. At the same time, they have a lot of money that they can play around with. So it's a real opportunity for the city council to move into a different position, potentially in power in Denver. Certainly we've seen a lot of interesting things come out of the city council. I mean, medical marijuana legalization, that all starts back there. Something like the homeless camping ban in downtown, that starts at the city council as well. So I think it's going to require people to not focus just on one race, but focus on these 50+ candidates, because the city council is going to be the thing to watch.